What if I told you that Leclerc and Hamilton were completely shocked after hearing the roar of the engine that could redefine modern Formula One? It's no exaggeration. Ferrari's new engine for 2026 not only sounds different, but it's built with a material that no other team dared to use. It was a freezing morning in Maranello. The calendar read January 16, 2026, but in the Ferrari offices it felt like the first day of a new century. Everything was arranged with surgical precision. The atmosphere was not yet one of celebration, but one of judgment. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton entered the technical heart of the Scuderia knowing that what they would witness that day was not just an engineering protocol, but a declaration of intent for the entire world of Formula One. In front of them, the engine that had consumed more than a year of development, almost unlimited resources, and the emotional capital of an entire organization, lay assembled on the test bench. Project 678, the code name for Ferrari's new hybrid powertrain for the SF26, was about to come to life. This was not just another engine. It was the result of a philosophical, risky, and deeply disruptive bet, which went against the technical consensus of the entire grid. Around them, engineers with their arms crossed, some holding their breath. Executives, mechanics, and technicians at all levels watched in silence, aware that this inaugural lighting represented the culmination of an unprecedented strategic change. Ferrari had voluntarily stopped the development of the SF25 in April of the previous year, giving up a season still in dispute to put all its efforts into this new car and its power unit. Fred Vasseur, the team manager, had publicly acknowledged that the decision was psychologically devastating for the squad, but also necessary. Ferrari could no longer afford to continue being almost champions. They needed to be reborn or resign themselves to irrelevance. Then it happened. A flash of tension in the air was replaced by the unmistakable roar of the new engine, a deep, high-pitched mix of electrical hiss and mechanical explosion, echoing off the walls of the workshop as if announcing a new era. The sound was short but powerful. Just a few seconds, enough for Leclerc and Hamilton to exchange glances, not of euphoria but of silent respect. The camera captured Leclerc nodding slowly, while Hamilton closed his eyes for a few moments, as if trying to record that roar in his memory. The spontaneous applause that followed was not out of courtesy. It was out of relief. For the validation of thousands of hours of work, for the engine that did not explode on its first start, for the project that was not stillborn. For Leclerc, this was the moment he had been waiting for since 2019, the year he bet his career on Ferrari. At 28 years old, he has gone from being the young promise to becoming the emotional pillar of the Scuderia. But his patience is not infinite. He himself has warned that the first 6 races of 2026 will define whether or not he remains in the team. This ignition was not just the first note of a new engine. It was the first page of the emotional contract that Ferrari must renew with its star driver. For Hamilton, the scenario was even more urgent. His first year at Ferrari was a sporting humiliation. 0 podiums, mediocre results, and a car incapable of competing on an equal footing with McLaren or Red Bull. At 41 years old, this new engine represents, perhaps, his last and definitive opportunity to achieve the 8th title that separates him forever from Schumacher. There is no room for more medium-term projects. For him, 2026 is not a news cycle. It is a last charge towards glory or definitive retirement. And there they were, both united by the same sound. Not as rivals, but as witnesses. Because that engine not only has to be powerful, it has to be perfect, it has to work beyond reason. It has to be a champion. And the most incredible thing of all is that, for the first time in a long time, in Maranello there are technical reasons to believe that this is possible. Ferrari didn't just start an engine. It ignited expectations. It sparked doubts, fears, illusions, and above all, the possibility of finally writing his name again in the golden books of Formula One. For decades, Formula One has been a laboratory of innovation, but also a deeply conservative terrain in certain areas. One of those unbreakable dogmas has been the use of aluminum cylinder heads. Light, highly conductive, easy to machine, and sufficient to withstand current pressures. Why risk more? That is the logic that has guided all teams for more than 40 years. Everyone, except Ferrari from now on. The 678 engine project breaks with that consensus with an almost provocative forcefulness. Ferrari has approved the use of steel cylinder heads, a decision that at any other team would have been ruled out at the first technical meeting. But in Maranello we don't seek to compete, we seek to win. And to do this, they have opted for a material that is apparently contradictory to everything a modern power unit is supposed to be: heavier, denser, and more difficult to manipulate. But it is precisely in that contradiction where his genius lies. Steel, well designed, offers much higher mechanical and thermal resistance than aluminum. Under extreme pressure conditions, the same ones that Ferrari wants to achieve to obtain more energy from each drop of fuel, the aluminum begins to give way, deform, and lose dimensional precision. Not steel. And that changes everything. The 2026 engine is not going to rely exclusively on raw horsepower. It will require thermal efficiency never seen before. And in this aspect, steel has an advantage that Ferrari believes can be decisive: heat retention in the combustion chamber. Its lower thermal conductivity means that heat remains where it is needed most, maximizing the energy that is transformed into useful work, instead of being lost through the cylinder walls. Enrico Galtieri, technical head of the engine area, was the one who gave the green light to the idea, but the real architect was Davide Mazzoni, the young engineer who has silently led the revolution from the test bench. Supported by the return of Guido Di Paola, a former expert in advanced metals, Ferrari built two parallel engines over months, one with the traditional aluminum head and another with the innovative steel version. They did it because they knew the bet was risky. The first fatigue tests were not encouraging. The steel, under racing regime, suffered internal microfractures due to continuous vibration. And in addition, there is the brutal regulatory limitation. Only 4 combustion engines are allowed per season. That requires almost superhuman reliability. But Ferrari was not alone. AVL, the Austrian firm that dominates the simulation and validation of hybrid units, worked alongside them. Together, they improved the internal design of the cylinder head using additive manufacturing techniques, removing unnecessary material, relieving internal stresses, and ensuring every square millimeter withstood the mechanical hell of a modern Grand Prix. The result was strong enough to make the project's boldest decision: ditch the aluminum version entirely, bet everything on steel. An all or nothing with no margin for error. For the most orthodox engineers, this decision is almost heretical. But for Ferrari, it is the only one that can change its destiny. In an era where margins for improvement are microscopic and rivals increasingly efficient, a 1% thermal advantage can translate into precious tenths per lap. And that 1% is just what Ferrari believes it has unlocked thanks to steel. It's not just an improvement, it is a symbol. Ferrari has chosen to break with the past, with tradition and with prudence. It has chosen to innovate in the only place where no other dared, in the very core of the engine. And that alone has already put all its rivals on alert. In Formula One, changing a technical philosophy consolidated for decades not only requires courage. It requires conviction, scientific support, and a vision that goes beyond the immediate result. Ferrari, a team historically associated with Italian mechanical tradition and pride, has decided to disobey the unwritten rules of the technical paddock. And it has done it right in the place where error is least tolerated, in the design of the power unit. Since the early 1980s, all combustion units in F1 have turned to aluminum as the ideal cylinder head material. The reason? Minimum weight, good thermal conductivity, ease of machining, and sufficiently solid behavior under normal racing conditions. Aluminum, in many ways, was the perfect material for the turbo era, the hybrid era, and the current era. Nobody discussed it. Nobody questioned it. Until now. Ferrari's new SF26 engine for 2026 has been conceived from the beginning with a different approach. The priority is no longer just surviving the 24 races on the calendar with 4 engines. It is extracting every millisecond from the hybrid system under thermal limit conditions. And this is where aluminum begins to show its physical limits. Although lightweight, aluminum suffers a significant loss of structural rigidity when subjected to extreme combustion pressures for prolonged periods. Its thermal deformation point and its ability to maintain shape under pressure mean that, beyond a certain threshold, it becomes a technical bottleneck. Steel is denser, yes, but that doesn't mean it's always heavier. The difference is in the engineering that surrounds it. What Ferrari has done is not simply change an aluminum block for a steel one. It has completely redesigned the cylinder head architecture, using tooling that didn't exist just 5 years ago. The real secret is not only in the material but in how it is constructed. For almost a decade, Ferrari has been developing additive manufacturing processes, that is, industrial-grade metal 3D printing. In collaboration with companies such as Renishaw, they have perfected the use of laser fusion on metal powder beds, allowing the creation of complex internal geometries impossible to achieve by conventional means. This means they can produce components with hollow internal walls, selective reinforcements, and internal cooling channels molded with millimeter precision. Each area of the component receives exactly the amount of material it needs. Not one more gram. That internal optimization is what allows the SF20SIXS steel cylinder head to be not a heavy slab, but rather an exercise in balancing mass, strength, and functionality. Furthermore, by increasing the thermal efficiency of the engine, Ferrari has been able to reduce the size of certain elements of the cooling system, offsetting some of the extra weight introduced by the steel. And that's not all. The 2026 technical regulations introduced a change that Ferrari has taken advantage of with surgical precision. The minimum weight of the power units increased from 120 to 150 kilograms. This increase of 30 kilograms, apparently neutral, opens a window so that innovations like this are not automatically penalized on the scale. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.